Okay, everybody, let's go ahead and get started. We're 3 minutes past 12. So hello and thank everyone for joining today's Liftoff webinar. Appreciate you making the time today in your busy schedule to join us. We're very happy today to welcome Miller Electric to talk to us about shaping the future of manufacturing. So Patricia Carr and Jason Ball will talk to us in a bit. But first, we have a couple of housekeeping items. Please mute your microphones if you will. We are recording today's session, so that will be available online tomorrow on our website, lift.technology.org, so that you can share this presentation with any of your colleagues who weren't able to make it today. We will also be facilitating a Q&A session. So if you would please submit your questions to the Q&A. It's in the bar either at the top of your screen or at the bottom of your screen. Please put them in the Q&A instead of the chat, if you will. That would be super helpful. But first, before we get to introductions and get to Miller, I'd like to tell some newcomers about Lift in general. So we'll just take a few minutes to do that. So Lift is a 501c3 public-private partnership between industry, academia, and government. And we're also a member-driven organization and an ecosystem. We're headquartered here in Corktown, Detroit, and it's one of the hardiest supply chain manufacturing regions of the US, which is also why we're headquartered here. We're one of 16 national manufacturing innovation institutes across the country, and our goal is to drive American manufacturing into the future through technology and talent development. So we believe that this connection happens between materials, processes, and systems and talent, which I'll talk a little bit more about. And these things are the route to smarter manufacturing. And as a result, the smarter manufacturing is economic and national security resilience. So that's what we're working toward. The next region of the world to take charge of this smarter manufacturing will definitely be the next industrial powerhouse. So at Lift, as a Department of Defense supported National Manufacturing Innovation Institute, we're working to make sure that that is the USA. So what do we mean when we talk about smarter manufacturing? We actually are talking about the connections between material science, manufacturing process, systems engineer, and talent development. At Lift, we focus heavily on materials research and manufacturing processes, but we need the virtual systems to connect to the physical world so we can better predict and understand how these materials and processes are working in real time. To achieve that, we operate 2 programs here at Lift: Leading Innovations Tomorrow, our technology program, and Learning Innovations for Tomorrow, our talent program. So Leading Innovations for Tomorrow, we focus on integrated computational materials engineering, agile and smarter manufacturing, advanced alloys and process development, and material joining. So this is a foundational slide, a foundational document when you're talking to everyone here at Lift and our ecosystem partners. These are our technical pillars. So this attracts, guides, and shapes all of the work that we do and the engagement that we generate and the technology that we're able to advance both in-house and also through our membership. You can see here quite a bit more depth in these areas that we operate in. This slide is a bit of a deeper dive into each of the 4 technical pillars, these areas at Lift that focus on our technology and talent work. Not only does our entire executive team bring decades of experience and expertise in these areas, but Lift has 4 PhDs specialized in each of these pillars of technology as well. These pillars also illustrate how Miller Electric is such a great fit for Lift as Lift ecosystem member, and how they contribute to the ecosystem, which will make more and more sense as we progress through our presentation. So Learning Innovations for Tomorrow on our talent side of the equation It's about innovation in the areas of new technology and career pathways and different approaches to educational venues that will attract and train incumbent workers and also young people who are really shaping their own careers and hopefully will be in various places around the manufacturing floor. We have a program called Ignite. It's a 3-year high school manufacturing program for students around the country where students learn foundational skills and gain exposure to advanced manufacturing and really get to see what manufacturing in 2022 looks like, which is much different than generations past. They study material science, electrics, physics, robotics, and new technologies like digital twin. We teach Ignite at our Lift Learning Lab here on site, and about 50% of the curriculum is taught online, which enabled us to operate during the worst of COVID. But under non-pandemic conditions, we had about 125 students each day who are slowly building back, as safety allows. And this program is rolling out across the country with our member and partner Amitral, and is available currently in about 10 plus states and growing really quickly, leaps and bounds. So we're very proud to present Ignite. And if you'd like to inquire about how to start Ignite in your state, give us a call. Not only are we preparing students for jobs of tomorrow, but we're also preparing students for jobs of today with nationally recognized portable certification programs. So Lyft offers these national credentials in the following areas: industrial technician maintenance, CNC operations, welding, and now robotics, which is our newest certification. They're available through Operation Next program. We launched this program in 2018 in Fort Campbell, Kentucky, with really outstanding results. Operation Next prepares active duty service personnel for reentry into civilian life, beginning 6 months prior to completion of their service, so that military professionals have a new credential and are qualified for solid careers on day one of civilian life. So that advanced launch is really helpful. Operation Next is also open to National Guard members and their spouses as they continue to serve our country, so that they may be prosperous in their careers as well, and hopefully move into smarter manufacturing fields. The program is now expanding to Hampton Roads, the Maritime region, and then the National Guard in Michigan, Wisconsin, and Florida. So stay tuned. There's a lot of really great growth there. As a DoD funded institute, this work and this audience is really near and dear to Lyft's heart. So this slide is an exciting slide to me. This is the work that I help to support with members. It's the Lyft Advantage. So how does, the question this slide answers is how does a company move into Lyft and benefit from membership? So this slide, trusted advisorship. So we help guide small and medium manufacturers in the adoption of smarter manufacturing. We're a technology accelerator, taking ideas from concept and first prototype to fully developed technology, ready to hand off to commercialization. Think back to the technical pillar slide that we showed just a second ago and the work that's being done in these realms to really benefit national economy and national security. We're also a technology showcase and a sandbox here in Detroit. We do a lot of this work on site here in Detroit, and we showcase and utilize tools and equipment that our members have developed and that they use. We make these things available to our ecosystem to help accelerate members' work and technology and to meet their business development goals. And we really are able to more and more demonstrate the art of the possible. So we have PhDs, engineers, and technicians on the floor every day, moving this R&D forward. Connecting and convening, which we're so excited is happening more and more coming out of the last couple of years of lockdown. Stay tuned. We're going to be having a lot of really exciting events come up through Lyft in the next year, in the next few months, but over the calendar year, it's exciting. We develop talent across the country from grades 9 to incumbent workers, lifelong learners through Ignite and Operation Next. And finally, we're a government partner and we help connect members with the federal government, which can be a critical bridge, especially for smaller companies. So we invite you to give us a call, visit our website, or arrange to come to Corktown. We'd really love to meet you and host you. Virtual meetings are still daily, so send us an email. You will also receive an email in your inbox tomorrow to follow up, and I'll help bridge you back to Miller as well. So thanks for listening to the Lyft overview. And now, without further ado, I'd like to introduce you to our Miller guest today, who will present increasing efficacy in advanced manufacturing education. So Patricia Carr is joining us today from, she's the National Account Manager, Welding Education and Workforce Development, and Jason Ball, District Sales Manager in Detroit. So Patricia and Jason will tell us all about Miller's capabilities and initiatives and how they are currently contributing to the Lyft ecosystem, which they are so much. I have to say here that Miller is one of our foundational members. They've been with us for years. They've contributed monetarily, equipment, contribution. They show up, they mentor. Miller is an incredible company. We're so excited to have you with us. And the relationship is growing and getting deeper every day. So Patricia, let's start with you. Let's see, let me go ahead and stop sharing, and I'm going to turn the screen over to Jason.
Awesome.
And yeah, Patricia, if you'll just give us a brief intro.
Yep.
And you all can take it away.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Addie, and to the team at Lyft for the opportunity today. My name is Patricia Carr, National Manager of Education and Workforce Development with Miller Electric. Been here for about 4 years. And I'm charged with partnering with industry and educational institutions around the country to support different CTE initiatives. And you'll see in a little bit kind of our overall focus and some of the work that we're doing in this space. Miller is dedicated to the overall health of the welding industry. And we'll definitely speak to that a little bit more. So I'm going to go ahead and allow my buddy Jason here to introduce himself. Jason, it's all yours.
Patricia.
Of course.
Welcome, everyone. Thanks for taking time out of your lunch to come and join us on this fine afternoon. Hopefully it's sunny where you're at. My name is Jason Ball. I'm the Industrial District Sales Manager here in the Metro Detroit area. In that role, I am in the capacity of a sales leader in this area. I help customers maximize their profits and their workforce through obviously different applications engineering, sales, conversations, demos, a lot of those other tools in our toolbox to use to advance the sale process, making sure customers are getting the right technology with the right fit. It's not just about trying to move the widget. It's trying to, empower these workforce areas to, have the right tools at their disposal and making sure they're using them correctly. Using my depth of experience in manufacturing, I come from a very 15-year weld engineering career that I'm able to bring to the sales role. So I always like to tell people I'm more of an engineer first in the welding area, salesman second, which I feel brings a grounded conversation to it, because at the end of the day, like I said, I'm not trying to push a solution that I don't feel makes sense, because I've been on that side of the seat before too. And how I do that, I get in front of customers, I'm in front of student body, get folks trying to have conversations and have discussions around what the technology and the environment looks like and what are the trends in the industry and where things are going. It's a fantastic job, and it's a new episode of How It's Made every day in this role. So it's great. And with that, I will start rolling through our webinar presentation here. We'll cover our agenda real quick on what are some of the topics. We'll talk about the ITW Miller overview. For those who don't know, Miller is owned by a company called Illinois Tool Works, and we'll give a quick brief history of what that relationship's like. We'll cover Miller and Lyft as a relationship too. I'm going to talk to a portion where there's the local side of how I work with Lyft, and then Patricia will have some conversations about what her view of what her goals are with the national view with Lyft. So it gives you kind of a macro micro view of this. We'll touch on technology in the education space, really the meat of why everyone's here. We'll go through some products and some processes that fit these spaces well. We'll share some trends each that really fit kind of the national view and the local view to give everyone some perspective here. We'll wrap up with a quick Q&A at the end. And from there, we'll let you get back to the rest of your day.
Fantastic.
So ITW, who owns Miller Electric? This may be the first time you've heard of this. And in fact, one of the things we like to bring up is you interact with an ITW product almost every day. And the kind of the beauty of it is you never even know it. It's in a lot of the products in your home. It's in a lot of the products in your daily commute if you drive. And it got its inception as a tooling manufacturer starting in the 1912, so early 1900s. Interesting tidbit is that during the 1930s, ITW was actually profitable through the entire portion of the Depression, which I think is just insane. Very, very good with money. The company overall it's a Fortune 200 company. So that's a pretty nice status to have. One of the largest companies I've worked for overall, and about 14.5 billion in revenue in 2021. So a substantial amount of money is made through these companies that ITW owns. And we'll get into some of the mechanisms that ITW has, where corporate buyouts could be a scary proposition. And I really feel that ITW has a very unique strategy around how it brings companies into the fold and really lets them run. And I'm going to spoil these details if I keep talking, so I'll stop there. By the numbers of look at the size of ITW, as you can see, it's a global partner in the scale of manufacturing products over 52 countries. You can see we have some involvement within the Asian markets and European markets. 45,000 employees globally, so very large workforce dedicated. That turned off there. And almost 20,000 patents that are included. And there's tons of patents that you're interacting with all the time. One that I like to point out that's interesting is the Ziploc bags the cheese bags that you have with the zipper on it was an ITW patent at some point too. So again, you're always interacting with these products. Majority of our revenue is generated in North America. So we're really proud of that we generate a lot of profit for this industry. Now let's get into something that might be more familiar to ITW products that you've interacted with already. So Rain-X is a ITW owned product that you may not have been aware of. It's a great product. If you haven't used it, give it a try. And Pazload, if you've ever had any connections with the construction industry, the nail guns that are used that's an arm of ITW that's used. And one of the fantastic attributes of ITW is when I first started at the company, side story, one of the DMs I was actually doing my onboarding with came from Pazload. He was coming over on the Miller side. So there's this great autonomy in how we're able to move around within the organization and take on different challenges through different product segments, which I think is just great. It gives us a lot of mobility to move around within the company. Hobart, you might be familiar with as a filler metal company, but also a kitchen grade manufacturer as well. So mixers and mixing stands come from our kitchen segments. And then the filler metal is a completely separate side of that business structure. Now we're rounding into some more of the welding and manufacturing names you might be familiar with. Tregascus, Bernard. So Tregascus was a brand that was acquired several years back. That's where our robotic MIG guns come from. And then Bernard is all of our handguns that go onto our equipment. And then hopefully the reason you attended today is Miller is also under that umbrella. 11% of the revenue is generated just from the welding segment itself, which is by and large probably one of the bigger contributors to the revenue segment. And we're going to hit on a couple of these key points a lot. The really big innovations that ITW is really standing for is weld health and safety and how to impact the shortage of skilled labor. And so the majority of what we're talking about today really fits into these two categories perfectly, which is exactly where ITW is looking to go with this. The last point is our business model. These are the tools in our toolbox that we're using to drive our innovation, to get our products in the market. And it really is a key to our success. And once I started to learn this model and adapt it in my everyday thought process, it is amazing what these tools can really do for you. And this is our core competency for us as a large team. 80-20 front to back process. We're able to use a lot of data-driven sort of analysis of Pareto, if you will. And that Pareto allows us to understand where is the majority of your time needed to devote to in order to maximize the amount of profit that comes in for your business. customer-backed innovation. Again, working with getting those VOCs, understanding the customer's pain points, and really bringing solutions that make sense for them. One of my favorite ones is this entrepreneurial culture, which I believe is a key factor in our success and one that I could really attach to. You get to run the business in this like sales territory, and same way with Patricia, we get to own that business. For example, I'm like Jason Ball, CEO of Miller Electric Detroit. And it's a fantastic responsibility because you get to own those numbers, you get the rewards with it. There's some risks to it, but at the end of the day, you're given so much great autonomy. And I love to see the leadership culture and how they treat this. And it's such a unique aspect that I've never seen at a company before. And I've worked for several large companies. Patricia, is there one in particular that sticks out to you as your favorite?
Yes. So my favorite, I have to say, is the customer back innovation, because what's great about it is that we keep the customer at the center of all the things that we do. Our products, to your point, Jason, as you mentioned, the VOC, the voice of customer, that we consistently do. And that is what is the breeding ground for great products. This is why you notice any product that you look at within the ITW portfolio, it solves a problem, because we keep the customer at the center of everything that we do and create. And you see a little bit more about that later when we talk about some products. Awesome. I'll kick it back over to you, Jason.
So we get into now the meat of the Lift Miller relationship portion here, and how we're creating this network that really influences the welding industry. And that was a key driver for me of not only just getting into Lift, but continuing to grow it. We had a snag with 2020, but we didn't use the COVID side to be a reason to say, shut this down, let's not interact or do anything. We really did a great job between both sides of Miller and Lift, trying to figure out how can we still collaborate? How can we still work with these new parameters? All of us had to figure out different ways to sort of pivot and adjust during the pandemic. And this relationship never struggled during that time. We actually really dug in deep, prospered from it, and really made a ton of gains as far as where do we see ourselves going with this relationship. But some of the key points that I'm going to make, when we want to be an influence in the market, you have to really focus with instructors. And for me, I have a massive passion for the education side of the business. It's a big portion of how I got to where I was today. I owe it to a lot of great teachers over the years, especially in a non-welding fashion. I had my interests fall way outside of welding when I was a young high school student. But what I never really saw a lot of that I'm passionate about is being an industry insider and coming to the high schools and sharing the attitudes and behaviors and these techniques and training that need to be in place. Because it's not just about skill sets sometimes with the physical welding. You got to have somebody help tell you, like, what's the framework that a young professional needs to follow to be successful and to be, and it starts with how to take feedback, how to not come in with a sense of arrogance, how to, not come in with this entitlement that you might know something more than somebody else. So those are big aspects of what I try to share with these groups of people I get in front of, to really help them be more successful. And I always like to use the term, like, look, I used to be in a role where I'd hire and fire welders. And that gets their attention, because then they're asking me more questions around how do I approach this interview, or how do I articulate these ideas? And that's really, to me, more powerful than, can you take weld? Can you make weld? Because we've got to, those are great. Those are baseline skills, but we have to be able to interact as a group and collaborate. And I don't feel enough of that gets taken care of at the high school levels and college levels a lot of times. It's like, hey, figure it out on your own. Workforce strategies, those come from, again, pivoting with Lift and using those different groups of people. There's helmets to hard hats. There's a couple different ones out there. I can't remember, in a second. Operation Next, which is the Lift one. There, it came to me. And how to link these together to operate in effective ways, because they are two separate workforce initiatives. And I'll kind of hit on that in a little bit. This is just a small sampling of commitment to the partners in the territory. When I say partners, these are the different schools, post-secondary, high schools, and also you'll see some professional organizations on here. The UA 190, for example. The one in the middle is the Ironworkers Local 25. Part of me branching out and spending some time in this education space, becoming part of the steering committees and advisory boards. I think I made it to 13 advisory boards now. Like, I have way more on my plate than I can do to advise effectively, but it's just been such an enriching experience to get on these steering committees, share this information like what I'm sharing with everyone today, and help just understand where's the territory going. In no way am I in a position to say, this is where you need to do, and this is what you need to do. I'm very much going to these places, listening, hearing what the concerns are. Again, going back to that whole customer innovation. You're not going to get customer innovation if you're just dumping all these solutions on folks that doesn't make sense. And we've definitely made a great commitment to supporting these different high schools and organizations. And some of these, they're not all on here, but these are certainly some of the ones that I've had a just fantastic time interacting with. When it comes to framing the Miller-Lift relationship, this is just a quick snippet of time for investments that we've made and some different activities that we've done within the short time frame we've been together. So 2019 is when this relationship kicked off. I was a brand new to sales, brand new to Miller employee. So it was definitely in the line of, hey, Jason, here's this workforce development program, go make it work. And I was like, great, I have no idea what to do with this. Met some fantastic people in the background, from the facility side, and got to really help develop the team from the background. So again, building on that point of talent developer that Addie brought up earlier to help bring in a weld instructor and to help fill in some key points to this relationship. We kicked off the lab 2019 with a small investment of $96,000 to get the learning lab up and running. By 2020, we actually started to settle on kind of the core equipment that needed to be there. Once we had a welding instructor, I was able to collaborate with him. We put equipment in there that really made sense for us to train the next generation of welders out of here. We get into the 2021, we were able to increase some of the boosts that we had in the cells. So we really just kept adding on to it. Again, really just framing this towards what makes sense. We're basically now in a state where we just keep swapping out the same equipment because we're pretty happy with the mix that's there. And again, that listening to the teacher and getting the feedback, how are the students perceiving this information? Is it making sense? Is the concepts working? Because if it's not, my goal isn't just to shove a bunch of equipment in here just to do it. It was like, this needs to make an impact. It needs to reference back to what different institutions, trade schools and high schools would be using too, so that they can get an idea of not just what we talked the factory of the future, like it's the factory of today. Because we could talk about the future, but we're having to live and deal with it now. Recently, we just did our next contribution of $110,000, continuing to keep that traction going with this learning lab. There's some pictures in here that we have of it too. Here's my point on the workforce development side specifically. So we talked about Operation Next. One of the ways that I was able to really be a connector for Lyft was to introduce them to the local 25 out of Wixom. And they run a program called Helmets to Hard Hats, which is a very similar initiative of taking individuals from the military and their spouses and retooling them and training them for welding jobs or manufacturing jobs. So specifically with welding, I was able to kind of help tie the two groups together. And now the place is, what's the word I'm looking for? It's certification. Maybe, I don't know, Addie, if you can think of the right word. It might come to me in a moment. But anyway, it's accredited. Maybe that works better. It's accredited so that if you train at Lyft's facility through the local 25, they will get that same helmets to hard hats experience that they would instead of just having to go under Operation Next. So another way of just building some efficiency within the education space in the territory. This is just a quick shot of what the lab kind of looks like. I'm sorry I don't have pictures of the actual cells inside. They are pretty cool the way they set this up. But to me, this is like world-class welding school booth setup. This was a project. So this is an example of what we would do when we bring a high school group through. We have Brandon High Schools in this photo here, and not just tour the lab. The picture you see in the upper right corner, I actually gave them this project and said, I want you to go build this. Again, that's the experience you're going to get when you deal with me is I'm not just going to give you some weld coupons to go weld with. I want you to go build a product, find out what the challenges are with putting this together. And let's have a collaborative discussion around what those challenges were and how you overcome them. That's where you really get growth. That's where you really learn something. And not only did they get to use, the latest in technology out there with welding, but they also got to leave with this cool little metal keepsake box. So just some fun ways for us to keep education fun and getting them experiencing a side of it. So that's what's happening locally in Detroit when it comes to linking all these critical pieces together. And I'm going to kick it back to Miss Carr, where she'll talk about the national level of Lyft and Miller is doing.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Jason, for that. Really exciting to see some of the work happening at the local Detroit market level. So now we're going to jump into some national workforce development initiatives that Miller is charging with, now this is probably one of the most favorite parts for me to talk about because, they say, show me the money and it tells the story, right? And Miller is an organization that truly contributes both monetarily and resources to this industry. So we're just going to jump to the next slide, please, Jason. Now, what you see here are just kind of some of the dollar amounts that we have personally contributed to these three organizations. Of course, AWS, American Welding Society, who is the pillar and standard here in the North America market. We've donated now to date about $1 million to that organization. And we also consistently work on advisory boards and really influence industry and have our industry contributors in this space as well. Skills USA, that's specifically for our high school students all around the country who come in and compete. I personally will be at nationals that will be coming up here in the month of June in Atlanta. So if you will be there, please stop by and find me at the Miller space there. I'm looking forward to meeting you guys. And then the last one is the World Skills USA as well at $40,000. So, and this is literally just a small snapshot of what we do. I mean, Jason could speak even at the local level that we contribute to some of the state level competitions. And sometimes it's helmets or it's jackets or it's filler medals, or even sometimes we actually facilitate the ecosystem of bridging industry and education together because they're buying from us, right? We have our industry customers and we have our school partners. So it's really being the facilitator oftentimes for those relationships. And that is what Miller is here to do. And that's what I'm charged to do at a national scale. So I'm just going to kind of keep moving forward. Next slide, Jason. So now let's talk about some technology in the education space. So as I alluded to earlier about my favorite piece of our ITW framework, which is that customer-backed innovation, what you're about to see today is a result of some of that work. So we're going to jump into kind of the technology within the education space. Next slide, Jason. Which is our augmented reality welding portfolio. So no secret, there's a shortage of welders, right? And we all are aware of this major skills gap. This portfolio was birthed in result of that skills gap. And so what Miller did was consistently heard the cry of the instructor, the schools, secondary and post-secondary levels, and tried to help them understand, try to help us understand kind of one of the areas that they are challenged with training. And even within that research, we found that industry partners like a John Deere, for example, expressed some of the same concerns because we have both a recruitment issue and a retention issue. So these two products that you're looking at today, which is the augmented arc, which is on the left-hand side, which is a true multi-process virtual welder. And on the right-hand side, we have the mobile arc. So let's just jump right into the augmented arc and kind of call out some specific value propositions around that. So the augmented arc is your true multi-process augmented reality welder. This can do all things welding that you needed to do without the sparks. So me being a former educator, and for those of you who don't know, I was a CTE director here in New York City before working for Miller. I am an advocate for education and I'm all about making my classrooms more efficient. So this tool does that for an instructor. I just consider even the high student to teacher ratio, especially within the inner cities. A tool like this really helps because one, you're giving that student that real-time feedback as they're welding. You can actually create assignments to meet both an entry-level student or an advanced level student. The coupons and the exercises that are included in this device are industry inspired. So once again, we keep our ear to the ground to, what a John Deere or Caterpillar, some of these major companies are utilizing, and we make sure we put that back into our education products because it is more and more important and evident that when students leave a school, that they are truly prepared to work in industry. So this is also a great portable device as well. What we've seen, and Jason can also speak to this, is school districts will buy this machine and take it from school to expose students to welding because oftentimes, budgets are a challenge. Take it from me. I came from New York City budgets, and it was a nightmare. However, a tool like this will allow you to provide programming to multiple schools within a district because of its portability. And then the last thing I just want to mention is our free teacher software that comes at no additional charge with this, that allows the teacher now to be more efficient in either pulling data, create assignments, and you can kind of see and track students' progress in real time. So what you're looking at here is a result of our customer-backed innovation core framework, which is the Augmented Arc. And it completely is a true training solution, both for private industry and schools around the country. The next slide. Now, this is our mobile arc. I call this the little brother of the Augmented Arc, because it literally does a little less than what the Augmented Arc does, but it's an entry-level device that was created specifically for our middle to high school market. But I can be honest with you, as I'm out here talking about this tool, I even see industry and local unions leveraging this because of the powerful impacts of this tool. What you'll find here is that this is a budget-friendly solution. This is a MIG-only augmented reality welder. So unlike the Augmented Arc, where you have more processes, you can choose the type of metal that your students are welding on. This one can only weld on a 1/4-inch steel. Okay, this is very portable. This whole bag is under 10 pounds. You can pick this up, you can go to a career fair, you can take it to a middle school, take it to a high school. It's super convenient. And this tool is also designed for both entry level and advanced level, and also provides that real-time feedback that the Augmented Arc offers as well. So this is the baby brother. And what we're seeing is a lot of combinations of both being leveraged in the classroom. Awesome. So I'm going to go ahead, and before I kick it over to Jason, I'm going to go ahead and just kind of mention one more thing. It is important, you know, as you think about building programs, and kind of one of my charges here working for Miller is to build programs in a sustainable way. And what LIFT has truly done is created a framework of programming, not just for impact, but for sustainability. So listen, we're really grateful for the partnership with LIFT, and we'll continue to grow that. So I'm going to go ahead and kick it over to Jason to talk a little bit about what he's seeing in both the high school and the post-secondary market. Thank you, Jason.
Thanks, Patricia. So preface before I go into this next topic, preface being the fact that this is not a discussion around what's right and wrong. The reason I have to preface this is I'm going to show you what I consider to be more of the best in class setup. Some high schools are at this point or getting to this point, and some schools aren't there. So I don't want people to feel alienated by, hey, when I talk about showcasing what really should be in a high school, if you don't have that, that's part of the reason we're having this discussion, is helping to build you to this point. And there's a reason for this. We understand there's a lot of budget concerns and cost issues that come with the high school level. That's the beauty part we've been doing with LIFT, is to help students get access to this technology and help understand what the budget concerns are. So that preface is important, because I don't want anyone feeling alienated, like, well, that's not where I'm going with the program. But there's a distinct reason why I feel like this next series of equipment makes a ton of sense for your program. So you got to kind of hear me out and take a leap of faith if you're kind of in the, I don't know what this guy's going on with this. So Multimatic 255, this is a machine that's making some really great impacts in the high school programs and college programs. It has multi-process capabilities. Why that's important, our workforce of welders needs to know almost every process out of the gate nowadays. You can't come into this welding workforce in Detroit and say, hey, I'm a really good MIG welder, and I've never really TIG welded before. It just caps you right off. There is just no room for you to expand that trade. You have to come out of these programs knowing, because sometimes if you're not going to go to college right away and you want to go into the welding workforce shops, you know, yeah, you can learn on a 220 Multimatic. It's a little great machine. I like it. I've just been seeing it creep into a lot more high schools. Problem is, you don't see that machine as soon as you go to a factory. And it's obviously limited on the size and capability of what you can do. So minimum for me is getting into this 255 category, to have the MIG push-pull aluminum, having the standard steel MIG and the TIG welding aspects of it. Building into that side of it, the Dynasty multi-process machine is a little unknown in the education space in some circles. And the more I've brought this to attention of schools, the more people have been really making sense out of this. Not only is this able to be that world-class Dynasty TIG arc that they're used to seeing in industry or hearing about in industry, you can also integrate this with a 12, it's called Arc Reach 12 suitcase that you can use to actually MIG weld off this machine as well. It's a very specific SKU, so you can't just upgrade to the feeder from just a standard Dynasty. It's a very specific SKU that it comes with. This is one of the machines that's on showcase at Lift that we use in the booth. It's actually half of our side that's set up. And CS282. So if you're really trying to go for a small budget friendly, budget friendly is probably a little strong, but budget minded high school program, this is really a great mix that gets you on the right path to go there. There's actually some schools that might be on the call today that actually have quite a bit of this already at their disposal. When we get into trade schools, now this includes post-secondary colleges. This will also include, when I talked about the UAs and the 25s, now we're going to start getting into what are the trade schools teeing you up for. And the reason, so one of my little engineering mindsets is continuity, meaning if I'm at the high school level working on this equipment, it's not so, I'm not feeling so alienated by it when I go to a trade school. And then it has a lot of continuity when I go to industry. So you really have to adopt using what's out there in industry in order to make sure your students aren't constantly behind the 8 ball here when they're trying to move through the trade. Dynasty 280, that's a staple in Detroit. 280s and 400s are just, there's a lot of them around here. So having your student body go through training specifically with the Dynasty is a huge benefactor for them because it's just what's out there. It's a majority of what you see being done there. Our aerospace presence here is a heavy user of this equipment. A lot of the tooling and technical shops around here are big users of that. So it's definitely, it makes sense. There's actually quite a few large programs around here that have many of these in their lab. So I was quite shocked to see that. Again, CSD 282, you're able to not only stick weld with it, but you can do steel welding with it as well. And then this picture I like is one of my favorites. When this one comes out of the local 25, this is a young student actually with one of the high school welding competitions that took place last fall. And the XMT in this space is really king for that. You only have, not only do you have MIG welding capability with it, you have your stainless and your steels, TIG and stick welding. So you're able to cover so many different industries between process pipe, between construction base where it's like iron work where you're splicing columns together. These are the type of machine packages are building the world. They're building the new bridge here in Detroit. You know, they're building this infrastructure that's here. So it's the sooner we can get the young people and the workforce development people to understand this technology, how much more impactful they're going to be when they get out there, because this is stuff you're seeing in industry. It's not the industry of the future. It's the industry of now. And it's really making a great impact at the local 25 and other iron worker facilities where they're finding the reliability. They're finding that it's adaptable. That suitcase 12 I talked about, they use that suitcase 12 on the Dynasty. They can take that same suitcase off and put on this XMT. So we're not creating these packages that are in lanes where I can only use one thing from it. We're making parts and pieces and accessories that mold well together to build you a really grounded experience in it. I could take that same suitcase, put on an engine drive and run a MIG process off of it. And every time I show this, people just get surprised because they're like, wow, that's easy. I thought it had to be more complicated than that. So again, this is really getting into that. What's the education space of your future maybe look like too? Want to hit on one aspect of multi-process. This is definitely a buzzword that gets kind of a bad rap sometimes, but pulse processes is part of this multi-process realm. Pulse is also something that I still combat as an industrial district manager daily. When I go into shops and introduce Pulse, I'm speaking with folks that are old enough to be my father's age, all the way down to the 18-year-old that just got out of high school. They've never used Pulse. And it's really concerning to me because that's my anecdotal evidence that why I'm talking and trying to get educators more involved with getting comfortable with Pulse. Sometimes it's just not having access to it. Maybe it's, hey, it's a budget constraint. And that's why I like to make sure I'm getting involved to talk with these schools, because one of the earlier comments I kept getting from instructors was, I don't teach Pulse because it's complicated. And I start shaking my head. I'm like, this is the easiest way to get a new young person to weld. Like you can weld faster, more successful because of how forgiving it is. And it's a one button adjustment if you set it up right. What it meant was the instructor didn't know the process really that well and didn't have comfort with it. And obviously as welders, we're pretty brash sometimes. We don't like to admit we don't know anything. So it's a barrier that I've been trying to work through and say, maybe it's just an education tactic that we're, again, working with the school to make sure that they have the best education on this equipment and they have a comfort with teaching it. Because when we're battling it as sales reps, and it's not just me as a district manager, my competition runs into the same problem where it's like, just there's apprehension to that. And it's only because it's a technological advancement. It's not so much that it's more difficult to use. And that's something I really wanted to make sure that I hit on. And we're adopting these. So you're going to see some things coming out in industry. The factories are evolving, and they're evolving in ways of where they want equipment that's easier to use. They want the equipment that a welder can walk up to with very little training and dial it in and get the appropriate weld quality out of it and get that part out the door without a lot of rework. We're also seeing how they're getting better, well-lit spaces. Factories are evolving to this factory of the future because they want to keep attracting talent. And our equipment's doing the same thing. We're trying to unlock this mystery minutia to the welding equipment, bring it more to the front face of it. Because we have to change the perception of welding. Like welding has a bad rap of being a really down and dirty, welding in a dungeon type of aspect. Trust me, those places exist around Detroit and other parts of the country. Like they're there if you want to find them, but it's not every space. And companies are making some great strides in building processes and parameters and worksheets and job instructions that are helping the workforce, better perform the job in a safer manner. Modernizing the user face. Over the next little bit, you're going to start seeing some new equipment come out that, we like to throw around the term new technology. We're getting into a phase now where we have great technology in our machines already. It exists today. And I just actually came from a customer this morning that was battling the same thing. They have a great machine. They don't know how to use it correctly. It's got a lot of bells and whistles on it. And the best thing you had was this laminate card guide. So you're going to see us building some interfaces now that are bringing that nice laminate card that you have for your dynasty and bring it right to the front end of your experience so that you can dynamically see what's going on with the weld bead before you even strike the weld bead for it. And that's going to be an awesome next step to help make this more accessible to more people. That's really the goal now. Because like I said, we're already making some great technologies and pulse processes, but there's a problem with being able to access it sometimes. And there's a problem being able to teach it. And that's where I really see us making these next great advancements in the territory with that. We got done with 10 minutes to spare. I love it. This works perfect. Now we can open it back up to Miss Addie Richards here to walk us through the next.
Impressive timing, you guys. So this is amazing. So as long as I think Miller was one of the first members that I met when I started at Lyft a couple of years ago. And I just learned so much. And what's interesting to me is, hearing about the leadership, how the company is built and structured and the philosophy. I feel like the complexity and the agility of the product is also really expressed in how the teams are being empowered to work creatively and directly with your customer base. So that's a really exciting thing to see. Oh, we have a question coming through. So does Miller make its own wire products or specialize in formulating wire for their customer needs?
We do, and that would be through Hobart Filler Metals. We pretty much sell in almost every major category: solid wires, flux cores, metal cores, stainless a little bit, definitely aluminums. And there are opportunities for formulations that happen there. It'd just be a case of having a conversation and seeing if it's something we can do. But yeah, we have full-blown capability to create new wire types and wire that fit a customer's process. Submerged arc welding was the other one I forgot about too.
Okay, wonderful. That was from our own General Burrows at Lyft. So thank you for that. While we wait for some other questions, I did have some questions of my own. So Jason, could you talk a little bit more about the challenges you see out there in industry? What are the common problems that you hear every day, and sort of how Miller is addressing those things? What's the most common issue?
It's really budgets. I find that is every instructor has the best intentions of making sure their students have the best equipment. I've been finding there's, I think, a pretty good disconnect sometimes between how the CTE coordinator thinks that might be running versus the perception of the weld instructor at the ground level. And one of the questions we proposed during our AWS meeting we had is, how many people have really seen a CTE coordinator at that steering committee or advisory committee? Because it's concerning where I see, schools that have the best intentions, the instructors got the best intentions, but the money's not there. But then you hear about how all this money is getting diverted to all these other programs that they have. And like welding is left with well, you got 10 machines in the shop. The perception is we have 10 welding machines, but they're all from 1978. and they require thousands of dollars to fix. And the teachers have been struggling to try to keep them together and patch them up. So, money really is really the loudest one that I hear people having an issue with. And so that's where this Lyft relationship, I think, has been helpful for us to be able to, get everyone exposed to what the equipment is out there. There is a secondary market that exists for this, this equipment as we roll through different variations of it. So it's really helping to connect people to say, hey, if you have a need for it, let's have a conversation around it. And, there's got to be a way for us to find it. Linking up with Lyft, where it's like, hey, are you taking advantage of enough of the government funding programs? Are you getting enough access to grants? That's where Patricia can jump in to help make sure. Are you accessing the money that's out there? And a lot of times nobody ever has the full picture. Between the people you see on the screen here, we have a great viewpoint from not just the Michigan side of it, but the national level of money that's available out there. Sometimes just takes asking the question.
Okay, thank you. So Jack Darrington has submitted a question. What are some of the newer Industry 4.0 methods and opportunities that are happening right now?
I'm not really into the industry. It's hard for me to really talk to that question.
So,
sorry,
go ahead. Can I jump in?
Go ahead.
Great
please.
question, Jack. Absolutely. So one of the things that we're seeing a lot more when it comes to Industry 4.0 methods are the blending of core competencies. So for example, like robotic welding programs, back in the day, that was like a curse word, right? People wouldn't even think that you can attach like a robot, for example, to a fundamental skill like welding. But so a direct solution for what we would have would be like our PerformArc system, our weld cell cart that we have just partnered with FANUC on recently to release. So those are some of the products that we do have. And also, just infusing more technology in the traditional education space. Like some of the products I mentioned to you regarding our augmented reality portfolio, more and more schools are becoming more open to these solutions because of the efficiency and being able to expand classroom knowledge as well, and taking in more students because those products allow you to do that. So I hope that answers your question, Jack.
And can I build on that question, your answer as well, Patricia?
Of course.
With sort of a pedagogical question, given your area of expertise in supporting teachers in schools, I can imagine setting up a welding shop, finding the money, maybe having teachers who actually have to train from scratch. This is a difficult area to kind of go 0 to 60 for students. So you talked about free software that accompanied the augmented arc. Could you talk a little bit more about how Miller comes in to support teachers in this complexity of getting a classroom up and running, and what kind of things do you help provide?
Absolutely. So when you come to Miller to start a welding program, we provide everything you need from soup to nuts to get you to the finish line. So specifically, OpenBook is a true resource that we offer. So we all know budgets are always a challenge. OpenBook was created as a free learning management system to support instruction of instructors who are looking to build a program, because oftentimes industry is who's fueling the instructors we have in our classrooms. These are not traditional teachers. They come in, they know how to weld, but they not necessarily know how to teach. So OpenBook is a facilitator to help bridge the gap so that now instructor can have somewhat of a framework on how to deliver the content to the students. It is a free system. I encourage everyone on this line, if either you're an educator or you know an educator, either working for a school or even within private industry, because we have companies that are leveraging this for their onboarding process. It really offers content. We have about 64 e-learning modules that offers content on how to weld from A to Z. It also covers some things like safety, electricity, some basic things that sometimes we assume that people are aware of, but they're not, right? But it just helps you turnkey that content into your program. So OpenBook is definitely a resource for that. And this is why Miller created it. We generate zero revenue from this product, but it's probably been the most impactful. Just a quick status. Just a quick statistic, I'm sorry, that happened last year during the shutdown of COVID. We had over 1,000% registrations on our open book LMS system. And I've had consistent testimonials from schools around the country on how open book has allowed them to continue teaching while their students were in their homes. So just please leverage it. I think it's a great tool and it's no cost to you. So nothing to lose there. Great question, Addie. Thank you.
That's amazing. Well, I think we have time for one more question. We're right almost, we've got about 2 minutes left. So
Okay.
Patricia, can you just kind of keep riffing on this idea of, the introductory process and talk about when, in your experience, is the best moment to actually onboard a young person into this whole world, the whole culture of welding? When do you plant the seed? And how does Miller kind of approach that process?
Great question. So I'm going to take off my Miller hat and put my educator hat on. Okay. Middle school. Middle school. And so like the mobile arc that we highlighted earlier was a product directly considering the middle school market. And just consider yourself as an educator. The middle school timeframe is the moment of transition for young people. It is the most pivotal time to expose them to the different career pathways that they have access to. So that is the time. And what we're seeing more and more throughout the country, I can speak for a state like Ohio and other schools, this is happening in pockets around the country that are actually creating programming and creating these systems, what they're called as micro-credentialing, to introduce these types of programming to middle school students where they can actually work towards a certificate when they get to the high school level. Because we have to create a continuity between the two. They cannot operate in silos. So I'm going to say middle school as an educator is the best time to introduce students to CTE.
Oh, wonderful. Well, this has been eye-opening for me. I know it has been for many people online. Again, everyone, remember that I'll be following up with you, so it'll be an easy bridge back to Miller. Patricia Carr, Jason Ball, you all are amazing. Can't wait to see you in person in the shop. Thank you so much for your time and your preparation for today's presentation. It was wonderful. And everyone online, thanks again for your time. Reach out. You'll be watching your inbox in the next day or two for an email, and we'll be in touch. Wonderful. Thanks a lot, everyone.